You are about to see a Fix-It Friday video, where a idiot with very little technical skill or knowledge will attempt to fix something. This is not a how-to video, and is likely to be factually incorrect, and at times dangerous. Please don't copy Kip, and see this video for limited entertainment purposes only. Roll titles.
Welcome to the channel if it's your first time here, and welcome back if it's not. Now, today we are back and looking at this Game Gear. In part one of the video, I got this Game Gear that was having trouble staying on, and we recapped the power board, and now it stays on, but the screen is all kind of glitchy and there's no sound, so it needs a full recap, and that's what we're going to be doing in this video. So yeah, we need to crack this open, take out the main board and the sound board, and take all the capacitors off them and replace them with brand new ones. So as I mentioned in part one, which you should watch if you haven't already, it's up there, there are just the 6 screws dotted around the Game Gear, and then we've got the game bit screw to take out, and it's as easy as that. Well, it's not as easy as that, but that's as easy as it is at the moment. Anyway, while I'm whizzing this undone, I'm going to quickly say, please make sure you give this video a like and maybe subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I would really appreciate it. And also, maybe consider joining the channel if you like videos like this and want to help support the channel so I can buy stuff like this to work on, then yeah, hit that join button below. Anyway, I'm going to whiz through this and we'll shout out all those awesome people that have already joined the channel.
First up, we've got those Kip fans who are Matt Lovey's JRC Electrical, For the Burbs, Mark C, Wayne Cornish, Mike Cass, Rob Lynn, Tony Arnold and Scott Made a Thing. Then we've got those incredible Kip early birds who are Roberta Grissom, Dean Ball, Sean at Cablesmith Electrical, Wayne's Retro World, Tim Salt and Sorcerer Stan. And here are our wonderful, lovely pair of Kip lovers who are Bella Webster and Stez Sticks Flippin' Fix. And she's still here. It is the wonderful Becky Boobar. She is our Kip nutter. Thank you so much for your support, Becky. Anyway, on with the video.
So like we covered last time, this is the power board. This has had a full recap and seems to be working okay. Here is the sound board, which we're going to replace the capacitors on. And here is the main board, which we're also going to replace the capacitors on. We need to unplug these white connectors. There are 1, 2, 3 of them. And then I will remove the soundboard and then remove the main board. Now I've got to remove this shield here because it covers up where the soundboard sits. Right, shield is removed, so there are 1, 2 screws to undo the soundboard. Oh, that's interesting. So the screw here on the soundboard has gone a bit sort of discoloured and weird. And you compare it to the screw over here on the power board, it's a bit strange. So maybe one of these capacitors has leaked a bit of shmoo onto it. So here is the soundboard free from its shackles. Yeah, it's hard to see really, but there might be some schmooiness around here maybe. We're not going to see properly until we actually take these capacitors off. Right, so now we've got to get the main board out. And there's a lot of screws. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Now I'm really speeding through this bit because after I've done it all, I come to this realisation.
I'm thinking actually, do I want to get this out of the case fully? Do I need to get it out of the case fully? Because the capacitors aren't actually through hole, they're sort of surface mounted. If I take this out fully, I need to think about like protecting the screen and everything. Let's get the microscope out. We can have a little closer look at everything so you can see a better view than what you can see here. So now we've got the microscope on, you can see a little bit more about what's going on with these capacitors, and if if I move that there, that one's not looking very clever, is it? This one I'm dreading doing because we've got this coil right here, and then we've got a lovely plastic connector right next to it. Where are more capacitors? Oh yes, look at that. Schmooey. Now I'm going to be putting in electrolytic capacitors, which is the same kind that I'm taking out, but I've got to be careful because these little sort of gold spots on the board is where it makes contact with the case on the other side. So I can't let the capacitors lie over these gold spots. So yeah, it's going to be a little bit fiddly. So the capacitors are held on with a little bit of adhesive on this bit, and then they are soldered on here. So I'm going to use some needle nose pliers to pull the capacitor up a little bit, and then I'm going to use the soldering iron just to remove it fully, he says. There we go. So that's the adhesive sort of broken and the capacitor's released a little bit. So now I've got to whiz round and desolder them all. So yeah, I'm just going to use the soldering iron and some tweezers to try and pull them up as I desolder. The solder is really manky and gone very weird. Might have to put a bit of new solder on top of it and see if that makes any difference. Ugh. That is disgusting. It stinks. It really stinks. Right, do you know what? I'm just going to get my head down and get all of these off, and then we can see where we're at. Well, I can understand why people don't like this job very much. It is quite hard going, there's not much room, and it is really difficult to get the capacitors off because the solder has just gone disgusting and mushy. So you can sort of see here, it's just pretty grim. Pretty grim. So I'm now, before I start putting components back on, I'm going to clean it and maybe re-tin all the connectors just so it looks a bit better. I'm going to use some solder wick to see if I can mop up the sort of remnants of whatever the hell is left on here. Well, that took ages, but I've removed the old caps, I've cleaned up where they were, and I've re-tinned the connectors in readiness for the new capacitors. Because this old solder was really sort of crunchy and disgusting, I had to reapply new solder on top of it and then clean it up a bit and put a bit of flux on it and use the solder braid to just clean everything up. And it actually started working out okay. I got into a bit of a flow and it all turned out all right. But yeah, it's not an easy job. And also I did slightly melt the connector there that goes to the power board, which is a little bit frustrating. I do have a spare one, but I'm hoping that I've not caused irreparable damage to that one, but we'll see. I have put some caps and tape on there in readiness to install the capacitor that's located here, but this one is probably the worst one, I would say, because of you've got a plastic thing here and a plastic thing there. But yeah, it's all right really. The kind of glue that they use to hold the old capacitors down leaves a bit of a sort of brown mark. I've cleaned it up as best I can, but ultimately no one's going to be seeing it really, apart from you guys obviously. And also I've remembered we've got to get all the capacitors off here as well. Yeah, might have to get a little bit more Hulk smashy with these ones because there's no easy way of unsoldering them really. No, they're sort of surface mount, so yeah, might not be pretty what I do to that one, but we'll get this board capped first and then we'll worry about the soundboards. Okay, well, it's now time to put some caps on here, but I just thought I'd do one in sort of real time with you, and I'm going to do the one that's probably the hardest to do, which is C31 right up by the connector that I burnt. So you can see on the microscope where it is, and I've actually already tinned the legs of this and trimmed it slightly so it should fit in position, but it's right by the screen contrast dial, so yeah, it's a bit tight. Now this particular one, you can see that it's marked with the polarity, so you can see the positive in the corner of the screen. So let's try and get this done. Oh. Yeah, that's roughly in position. Just gonna use a bit more solder on this one. And a tiny touch more solder here. Whoa. Yeah, I think that's in. That is probably the hardest one to do just because it's so close to that connector. That'll do. Okay, well, just got to do quite a few more now. Well, it's actually several hours later now, and you're probably thinking, why didn't you show us you installing the capacitors kit? And that is because it's been a gigantic waste of time. So the problem is, the capacitors in the capacitor kit that I had already are just far too big, and it means that the case doesn't actually close properly. And I've tried rejigging them and fiddling around with them, but it's just not working, and I can't get the case shut and secure without probably causing damage to the new capacitors or indeed the board. So rather than just continue and get all cross with it, I'm going to stop and I'm going to order the capacitor kit from RetroSix, which has surface mount capacitors. So they'll just be tiny, they won't be polarized, and it will just make life a lot easier. I mean, I might not actually need to remove all the capacitors that I've done, but it's this area here. It's probably these 6 here that are causing the issue. That's stopping the case from closing, which is a bit of a pain. But I've done the hard work, and that was removing the existing capacitors and also cleaning up the board so the new capacitors will go on. So it's a bit annoying, but I'd rather do a proper job of it and make sure that the case closes properly and cleanly than force it and ruin things. But we do still have the soundboard here to get these 5 capacitors off. Yeah, I'm just going to Hulk smash them off basically, and we can have a little look at what it's like together. So I might do the surface mount capacitors on here as well. Yeah, it might actually end up being easier. So I'm going to just see if we can get these off with a bit of persuasion from needle nose pliers. I'm just going to give it a little dance from side to side, little twist. I mean, if this all goes horribly wrong while I'm ordering the cap kit from RetroSix, I can order a new soundboard, but I'm sure it'll be fine. Oh, there we go. I think that's loosening up. It's like pulling out a tooth. Yeah. Definitely got some leaky caps there. Oh, that one's going. Yep. Not good. It's actually quite amazing, really, because I kind of assumed that everything looked okay, but really, once you get under the capacitors, you can really see just how bad things are. Yeah, that's pretty gross. Pretty gross. But it'd be quite good to get the surface mount kit from RetroSix because, oh, that one's really bad. I've not actually done any SMD soldering before, although I'll still be using my iron like normal rather than the hot air. Yeah, it'd be interesting to sort of cut my teeth on something. And also the good thing about the surface mount kits is you don't need to worry about polarization because those kind of capacitors don't have a polarity, so it doesn't matter which way around you put them on. Ooh. Yeah, not looking very good, that. Yeah, I mean, even with an initial clean with some IPA, it's coming up better. But yeah, I think putting some surface mount components on here is probably going to be easier than putting this big electrolytic capacitors on there because space is relatively tight on here as well. And caps and tape around these connectors because we've got some caps quite close to it. So it's a little bit annoying, but it's okay because I want to make a Game Gear that will stand the test of time. So I think what we'll have to do is come back in a couple of days when the kit has come from RetroSix and we can get this installed. Well, it's a couple of days later now and RetroSix have delivered the goods in several senses. So yeah, we've got the full capacitor kit here and they use the SMD capacitors. So I hopefully shouldn't impede in the closing of the case. So the kit consists of lots of 100 UF capacitors, 2 1 UF capacitor, lots of 10 UF capacitors, and also some capacitors for the power board. But obviously, because I've already done the power board, we don't need those. So that's good, but I've got some spares if I ever need to do another Game Gear. I think I'm going to start on putting the capacitors on the soundboard. I think all of them are the 100 UF capacitors. So yeah, we'll switch over to the microscope so you can get a better look of things, and so can I, because this is going to be quite small and fiddly, and hopefully we can get some capacitors on. Okay, so this is C7 on the soundboard. It's the capacitor right next to the speaker connector, and I think in theory this will probably be the most fiddly one to do because it's next to a big lump of plastic, which I have protected with a bit of caps and tape. Put some extra solder on there for now, and we'll get one of these capacitors in. Actually, you know what? I think that needs a bit more of a clean, really. Not happy with that. Don't think I got all the old capacitor schmoo off of it. That looks better. Right, I might put a little bit of flux on as well. Now let's try tinning it up. Yeah, that'll do. That'll do. Alright, let's get one of these tiny little capacitors out. This is where it gets very fiddly. Considering it's the first time I've ever done a surface mount component, that'll do. Let's go for number 2. I think I'm only going to tin one side first. I think that might help me make it so it's a bit more even. Okay, well that's 2 down. Second one felt slightly easier. So yeah, I'm just going to quickly rattle through the rest of them on this board. So I'm just going to crack on and get it done. Well, there we go. It's not the best job you'll ever see, but it's certainly not the worst. And I'm pretty happy with that for my first time ever doing surface mounted components. So hopefully we should have a nice working soundboard there. But we're not going to find out yet because I've got to do the same on here. So yeah, again, it's just basically rinse and repeat. Obviously I've got to change up the values on some of the locations here. I'm going to get this board under the microscope and basically continue what I started on the other board. Okay, so that's all the 100 UF capacitors done. I did leave this electrolytic capacitor in situ, largely because I very nearly melted the whole connector last time when I changed it. And now I'm going to switch over to the 10 UF capacitors. It's so fiddly. I've got so much respect for people who do this day in, day out, but yeah, I'm enjoying it. Okay, so that is all the 10 UF capacitors done. I did go and remove the 2 that were on the other side of the board that I thought I'd leave as the electrolytic capacitors, just because I thought, let's do it properly, or mostly at least. Right, so now we've just got 2 more capacitors to do, and that is the 1 UF capacitors. And then it's done, hopefully. And we're done. Those last 2 capacitors were horrendous. They were so tiny. And also I noticed on the first one that I did that the trace was lifting ever so slightly, so I had to be really, really gentle. I didn't clean around that one because I just didn't want to destroy the trace. Obviously the footprint is so much smaller of these capacitors, so the case should close really well. Well, I guess the next job is to assemble it and see if it works. So let's do that. Well, this is a moment of truth. It's all back together. Will it work? Well, I've got my super off-road cartridge, which is what we started with. I'm not feeling massively hopeful considering I took off all the capacitors, I cleaned off all the goo, I put on new capacitors, and then I took those off and then I put on better new capacitors. So it's had quite a lot of work done. If it works, it will be an absolute miracle. 3, 2, 1. Oh, yes! Look at that! Oh man, the screens on these are really awful, but it works. There is display. But there's no sound. Is there sound on this bit? Feels weird there's no sound. Oh, no, wrong way, Kip. Wrong way. I haven't seen a proper working screen on a Game Gear in real life for years now, and they really are bobbins. Really, really. But yeah, we don't have any sound, which is worrying. We didn't have sound originally, but I was hoping the cap kit would fix that. Have I got some... Let me try plugging some headphones in and seeing if we get sound through headphones. Oh! So that's weird. When we plug headphones in, we get sound. But when we take headphones out, we don't get sound. I think actually that's the sound coming out of the headphones. It's so loud, it's coming out of the headphones really loudly. Let's just try a different game. Well, it's frustrating that it's not working 100%, but at least I know that the sound does work. It's just a problem with it outputting through the speaker, because it's got a little switch in there, I believe, that turns on and off the speaker when you put headphones in. So it might be that that's broken, or it could be something physical with the speaker instead. I don't really know. I will probably come back and have a little look at it, because I'm going to be putting this into a new case and installing the new screen kit. And the new cases do come with stereo speakers connections, and for that you need to have the RetroSix soundboards. It's not so much of a pressing priority, but I do want to get to the bottom of it. But overall, I'm really happy with how that went. I think I should have just gone with the RetroSix surface mount capacitor kit in the first instance. It wasn't as bad as I thought. I think with the surface mount kit, because the caps are so small, you don't have to worry about making the case fit back together again, because this fits beautifully and I'm really happy with that. So yeah, I really hope you've enjoyed this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you want to see the journey of this Game Gear continue into something awesome and really funky and modern, and maybe just give the video a like, because it's taken a while to make. But yeah, let me know in the comments what you think about putting this into a brand new case and whether it's a good idea or not. I think seeing the screen as it is, all working and working well, it's not very good. So I think I do need a new one. But hey, we've got a working Game Gear, mostly. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. But for now, it's game over.